Prithu Maharaj's meeting with the Kumaras, text number 55. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Gopitaya Jagat Shrishti Kale Sve Sve Chutatmakaha Mano Bhagavativi Saumyaya Gunai Samrajayan Prajaha. Gopitaya,
Gopitaya,
for the protection of,
Jagat
Shrishti, of the Supreme Creator, Kale, in due course of time, Sway, own, Achyuta Atmakaha, being Krishna conscious, Manaha, mind, back, words, Pritibhi, by occupation, Saumyahi, very gentle, Gunai, by qualification, Samranjayan, pleasing, Prajaha, the citizens. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktivinoda Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Since Maharaj Prithu was a perfect devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he wanted to protect the Lord's creation by pleasing the various citizens according to the various desires. Therefore Prithu Maharaj used to please them in all respects by his words, mentality, works, and gentle behavior. Purport. As will be explained in the next verse, Prithu Maharaj used to please all kinds of citizens by his extraordinary capacity to understand the mentality of others. Indeed, his dealings were so perfect that every one of the citizens was very much satisfied and lived in complete peace. The word Achyutatmakaha is significant in this verse, for Maharaj Prithu used to rule this planet as a representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He knew that he was the representative of the Lord and that the Lord's creation must be protected intelligently. Atheists cannot understand the purpose behind the creation. Although this material world is condemned, when it is compared to the spiritual world, there is still some purpose behind it. Modern scientists and philosophers cannot understand that purpose, nor do they believe in the existence of a creator. They try to establish things by their so-called scientific research, but they do not center anything around the Supreme Creator. A devotee, however, can understand the purpose of creation, which is to give facilities to the individual living entities who want to lord it over material nature. The ruler of this planet should therefore know that all the inhabitants, especially human beings, have come to this material world for sense enjoyment. It is therefore the duty of the ruler to satisfy them in their sense enjoyment, as well as to elevate them to Krishna consciousness, so that they can ultimately return back home, back to Godhead. With this idea in mind, the king or government head should rule the world. In this way, everyone will be satisfied. How can this be accomplished? There are many examples like Prithu Maharaj, and the history of his regency on this planet is elaborately described in Srimad Bhagavatam. Even in this fallen age, if the rulers, governors, and presidents take advantage of Prithu Maharaj's example, there will certainly be a reign of peace and prosperity throughout the world. Gopitaya Jagatshishte Kale Sve Sve Achyutatmakaha Manubhagvritivi Samyay Gunayar Samra Samranjayan Prajaha. Since Maharaj Prithu was a perfect devotee of the personality of Godhead, he wanted to protect the Lord's creation by pleasing the various citizens according to their various desires. Therefore, Prithu Maharaj used to please them in all respects by his words, mentality, works, and gentle behavior. So Srila Prabhupada explains in many different purports that this material world is ruled over by what is called pravritti. Pravritti means following one's own inclination. Everyone, as Bhagavatam says, has all living entities have an inclination within themselves for illicit sex, for intoxication, for meat eating. These material activities are inevitably attractive for those who are sunk in this pravritti. Vritti means, again, that I will do what I like. I will follow my own inclination. I am here, this world is here, so let us enjoy. Just like you find in the Srimad Bhagavatam description of, what is allegorical, it's an allegorical story of King Prachini Barhisha. And so he was traveling here and there, and then finally came to a beautiful city. So King his name was, yes, Puranjan. King Puranjan, this is a story that Narada Muni told King Prachini Barhisha, the allegorical story of King Puranjan. So King Puranjan represents the soul, and the city represents this body, city of 9 gates. And so in a garden within the city he met a beautiful woman, and this woman represents the material intelligence by which the soul is able to interact with this body. So this woman invited him to join with her, and she was proposing that the Vedic scriptures are actually meant for this. The Vedic scriptures are actually meant for the Dharma, establishing oneself in an occupation, Artha, winning wealth from that occupation, and Kama, sense gratification. She was praising the glories of Praja Ananda. She called it the Ananda or bliss of producing progeny, producing children. This is very nice. And then Amrita, the nectar of sacrifices, because when one performs ritualistic sacrifices, then one receives so many material benedictions from the demigods, so this is very nice. And then finally, at the next stage, or after the demise of this body, Vishoka Loka, to attain the heavenly planets where there is no suffering. So she was proposing that this is what life is all about, and it is confirmed in the Vedic scriptures. This is the real meaning of Veda, just these activities. And she said, and as far as the Kevalinas, she calls them, the sadhus, the saintly persons who have renounced this world, this is the other mark, nibritti, to give everything up. Prabhupada says that prabritti, he compares to an ant which you see running here, looking for sugar, running here and there, trying to find something sweet, running around in circles. You've seen these ants. And nibritti is, one becomes tired of this. One asks himself, what is the use? And then wants to elevate himself, purify himself, come to clear consciousness, Krishna consciousness, go back home, back to Godhead. So, Kevala means pure consciousness. So this woman says about those who are Kevala, who have renounced this business of running after sugar, running after sense gratification. But they do not know the purpose of life. They're like little children. They're like foolish creatures. So this is pravritti. This is pravritti according to the Vedas. What to speak of pravritti, which is simply under avidya. There's 2 kinds of pravritti. Under avidya, total ignorance, and then under aparavidya, the material knowledge of the Vedas. So avidya means that this demoniac pravritti, whereby people have the inclination, as I said, in this human form of life, to eat meat, to enjoy intoxication, to have illicit sex, all sinful behavior. And so now the world is ruled by this. In Vedic culture, there was the Aparavidya, which is the knowledge of Varna Ashram Dharma, executing one's duty, social duty, regulated sense gratification, and attaining heavenly planets after this life. That's Aparavidya. But really, the real point of life is Paravidya, knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is again Nibritti Marga. Nibritti Tayashaya Rupigiyamana, the Bhagavatam says. This Bhagavatam is actually meant for those on the Nibritti Marga. Only they are able to taste the nectar that is offered here, the nectar of rasa, that is offered in the pages of Bhagavatam. Others cannot taste this. Others cannot know. They may take Bhagavatam as mythology, some historical narration, some interesting philosophy, speculation. But there is nectar. Bhagavatam has stated in many verses, is for the Paramahansas, for the Rasikas, Rasagya, for those who know rasa, those who know the nectar of relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So anyone can become Rasagya, can become a knower of rasa, if they take to this Nibritti path. But this Nibritti path is extremely difficult. Extremely difficult, because we are habituated to sense gratification, or even we try to give up sense gratification, and we take shelter of mental speculation. And this is another kind of pravriti. If you want to know what the pravritis are, then read about the 4 kinds of devotees with mixed desire that Lord Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita, 7th chapter. So there's those who are distressed, those who are in need of money, those who are curious, and those who are in search of knowledge. These are 4 kinds of pravriti. So, yes, even one gives up the sense gratification, then one becomes entangled in mental speculation. The actual nibritti is very, very difficult to attain. Therefore, we have to follow the path of the Mahajans. Mahajano yena gada sapanta. And Prithu Maharaj is a Mahajan. Dhruva Maharaj is a Mahajan. There are 12 Mahajans. So we see in their example what must be done. Prithu Maharaj is not only a great soul, he's an incarnation of God who is descended as a king. And as a king he has a social responsibility, as this is being described here in this verse. He wanted to protect the Lord's creation by pleasing the various citizens according to their various desires. So he wanted to see that the purpose of this creation is actually fulfilled. So he is Nibritti Margi. He is firmly situated in transcendence and Krishna consciousness. But he appears as a king to connect Paravidya with Aparavidya. So those citizens who have desire, pravritti, who need to gratify their senses and their minds, he is showing them by his own example how this must be done. Similarly, Dhruva Maharaj, same thing. For 30,000 years, Dhruva Maharaj ruled as a king, but he ruled perfectly. It is clearly said in the Bhagavatam that he was engaged in dharma, artha, kama, but he did it perfectly. Why? Because he had no material desire. So this is puzzling. This is puzzling to the ordinary person. How is it possible that someone can engage, as a king must do, in dharma, artha, kama? King is the foremost enjoyer of his kingdom, and that inspires the others in their work. So how could Dhruva Maharaj do this and yet not have any interest in sense gratification? So yes, he was doing just as Prithu Maharaj has done. His interest is not in sense gratification, but for leading the living entities on the right path. Therefore he sets the best example in all fields. In all fields. And he does this perfectly because he is perfectly detached. So those who are prabhiti, who are impelled by their own desires, they find this very, very difficult to understand. They cannot understand that someone can perform his duty without selfish interest. So actually the prabhiti people, they have a problem accepting spiritual authority. This is you can say, the essence of the difference between the two. Pravriti and nibriti. Those on the nibriti marga, they have no interest in this material world. They want to go back home, back to Godhead. So therefore they very willingly embrace spiritual direction. How can I go back home, back to Godhead? That's all. Whereas the pravriti, they have other purposes. Other purposes. So therefore, they cannot simply surrender. They cannot simply give up. You see. And if someone tells them to do that, as Krishna points out in Bhagavad Gita, that disturbs their mind. Disturbs their mind. What to do for them. So therefore, the great souls, like Prithu Maharaj, Dhruva Maharaj, and so on, Mahajans, instead of simply remaining as sannyasis, total renunciates, and telling everyone that everything except 100% surrender to Krishna is Maya. And if you cannot surrender to Krishna completely, give him every ounce of your, or every drop of your energy, simply dedicated to Krishna, nothing else, then you're fallen. So that will alienate most people, including most people in ISKCON. That's a fact. Most devotees in ISKCON, truthfully speaking, they cannot accept such instructions. So, but the path of the Mahajans is that yes, you can fulfill your desires, but fulfill them under Krishna's protection. And this is the point here. Maharaj Prithu, he wants to protect the Lord's creation. What does that mean? He wants to protect the living entities. Let them satisfy their desires, but in a way that will not contradict their spiritual advancement. This is the Vedic path. The Vedic path includes both pravriti and nibriti, brings the pravritis to the nibriti. This is the whole science. They have strong desires, so let them satisfy those desires in a regulated way, so that they will gradually let go of the desire. And this is only possible under Krishna's protection. If one takes shelter of demigods, that is not possible. Because as stated in the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, only if we approach Lord Krishna, we may be sarvakama, we may have so many material desires, but only when we approach Lord Krishna can we get those desires satisfied in such a way that the desire will then be relieved permanently and will not come back to troubles. Whereas if we worship demigods, or to speak if we worship demons, as people do today, demons, ordinary materialistic leaders, but even demigods, if you worship demigods, you simply get the material object, but you do not get purification of the heart. You get the object of your worship, you can enjoy that, and then after having enjoyed that, then again, you desire something more. Because the material desire was not actually satisfied. Actual satisfaction of material desire means the desire then is pacified permanently. One does not have to, again, come back to that thing. So this is only possible under Krishna consciousness. This is the wonderful opportunity that Lord Krishna is affording those who take shelter of him. So, therefore the Vedic Marga, the real Vedic Marga, which leads back home, back to Godhead, that is the path of the Mahajans, that is the path of the devotees, the karmis, and even the jnanis. As long as they remain addicted, as long as they remain habituated to karma and to jnana and not devotional service, they cannot successfully traverse this path. They cannot make it. They become deviated because their desires are not engaged in Krishna's service. And this holds them like a chain in this material world. So Prabhupada says, with this idea in mind, the king or government head should rule the world. In this way, everyone will be satisfied. And this is the mission of the Krishna consciousness movement. Our mission is not actually to divide, but to include. Not to exclude, but to include. And when one understands properly this pravritti and nivritti process, then one sees how all human beings can be included on the path back home, back to Godhead. There's no need to separate people. Of course, people are automatically separated by their desires, but there's no need to place someone in a condemned category simply because they have material desires. Even they have, that's the Bhagavatam, what is that? Akama, savakama, va mokshakama, udaraditi, vrena bhakti yogena, yajeta purushottama. One may be akama, without desire, sarvakama, full of desire, mokshakama, desiring liberation, like the jnanis. Sarvakami, like the karmis, and akama, like the devotees. Doesn't matter. But tivrena bhakti yogina, yajeta purushottama, all are told to do one thing, to worship the Supreme Lord. Then one is on the proper path. So this is the actual Vedic method for everyone, by which everyone can reach the prayojana, the supreme goal of life. Krishna. Are there any questions? Yes?
So I didn't really understand. Is it so that then it's not before we have no material desires then we can say that we are on the nivritti path, or is it?
Nivritti is your the Mahajans, the great devotees. They are nivritti, and we must become their servants. Just like Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he said, we are the peons. You know this word, peon? You're the little servants of the 6 Goswamis. Not that we think we are Goswamis, we are big, big authorities in Krishna consciousness. We are big tasters of rasa and all this and that. This is imitative. But rather we should be humble servants, and we should confess that I am disqualified, I am full of material desires, I am pravritti. But you become peon of the nivritti devotees, and by their mercy then one can come to nivritti. Yeah?
So there is priority nivritti, marga, and avidya priority, and this worship of demigods and jnanis, they are in pravritti or in avidya? Pravritti.
That is all aparavidya. Aparavidya means the material Vedic knowledge. Paravidya means knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So karmis and jnanis, yeah, they are pravritti in the sense, as I said, pravritti means to follow your own inclination. So one can do that in ignorance, or one can do that under the Vedic material knowledge. Or one can do that following the path of the Mahajans, which also that has some aspects of course, the aparavidya is also there. Just like in ISKCON, we recognize the need of some social organization according to Varnashram Dharma. There is a general recognition of that. The Varnashram Dharma is aparavidya, is material knowledge. But we use that. There's so much material knowledge that we use in Krishna service. So, but the thing is to use it, yes, in Krishna service, under the guidance of the Mahajans, the great devotees. Then this leads to nivritti. What is nivritti? It means purification of the heart. Purification of the heart from all material desire. But unless one is connected to the Lord through his pure devotees, then the purification of the heart is not possible. Even one may be following the Vedic path. One follows the Vedic path, but is not being guided by the Mahajans, by the Mahatmas, the great souls. And then one may get moksha, liberation, in impersonal Brahman at the most. But of course one has to come back to this material world. Any other question? Yes?
Another name of linking material inclinations, Krishna consciousness, can be the danger of misuse. So how is one protected against this?
Well, under the name of giving up material desires, one can also be misled. So the path is the Upanishads say that this path is like a razor. So it's very easy to get cut. It's like a razor, it is strewn with thorns. So therefore, one is advised to accept the shelter of genuine spiritual master who is expert to lead one along this path. Will guide one. Spiritual master is our eyes. Without him we do not have eyes, we cannot see. The path is dangerous. Just like I read the story of a young man in France. So his pravritti, his heartfelt desire was to become a race car driver. But he had one problem. The problem was that he was blind. He was so much thinking of becoming a race car driver. But one day, guided by his girlfriend, he stole one fast car. And he revved up the motor and put the gear into forward and went racing down the street. And within 1 minute, he'd created, he'd smashed about 10 cars and smashed through a marketplace and created a big havoc. And then he was arrested. It's a true story. So we may want to, speedily reach the goal. But if you don't have eyes, then that will be the result. It is ridiculous without guru, and not just formal, but actually accepting the spiritual master as our eyes. Om Jnana Timirangisya Gnana Shalakya Chakshuru Militam. Chakshuru, he opens our eyes. So without this, then we are like that young man who wants to be race car driver, Formula 1 race car driver, but you're blind. Ridiculous. So that is, as you mentioned, to engage one's material desires in Krishna's service, and also, on the other side, to renounce material desires. Both are fraught with danger. Both are very, very treacherous to do. But with spiritual master, then it is done. Anything else? Yes?
I just want to ask how we can understand the verse from Bhagavad Gita when Krishna is telling that even the sage acts according to his own nature and has related to pavitra nibriti. Because sometimes devotees are used to take this verse in different circumstances.
Well, we have the material nature and we have the spiritual nature. So to act according to one's own nature, or yes, the transcendentalist also acts according to his own nature, but that is the spiritual nature. There is variety in the spiritual world. Actually, the spiritual world is the origin of all variety. It is the most variegated place, unlimitedly variegated. At the same time, all that variety is simply meant for Krishna's pleasure. So the liberated devotees follow their own nature too, but that is their nature to please Krishna, love and please Krishna according to their particular rasa, their particular relationship. And then of course there is material nature. Those in the material world are conditioned by that. And they follow that inclination. Any other question? So Prabhupada ki
Jai. Suhotra Maharaj ki Jai.
Jai.